Training splits. Today we're going to talk about training splits and how to use them for you or for your athletes. You have to ask yourself a lot of questions with regards to training splits. Are you training a mom? Are you training a professional athlete? Does the person have enough time? Maybe they have only enough time for 2 times a week, let's say. What I try to do in general is hit a similar area of the body twice a week at least. And that usually facilitates the most amount of improvement of strength and hypertrophy. So for example, if you could only do 2 training sessions a week, I would do lower and upper both times. So it would be a full body workout and you go ham. Otherwise, if you did a lower and upper, for example, it would take another 7 days before next time you hit it again. It's not going to work for you. Okay, let's say somebody's in season and they're going to do 3 times a week. So maybe you could do lower, upper, and then full body. Commonly how I would train people that do 3 times a week, because each part of the body gets hit twice in a full week, and you can do a little bit more conditioning with the full since it's upper and lower. That'll naturally hit a little bit more cardio, and then you can do a little bit more strength on the upper and lower separately and practice your sport in between. Another way you could simply do this, upper, lower, and then also lower. So, for example, if I was training a sprinter, they could train that way. In this case, this sport doesn't need as much size for the upper body or as much strength for the upper body as it does the lower body because it comes in contact with the ground. One of my most preferred methods is simply lower, upper, off, then lower, upper, right? And then off on the weekend, let's say. So a lot of people run off the 7-day week. This would be the weekend here. And then this would be Monday, Tuesday. This would be Wednesday. And this would be Thursday and Friday, right? So this is a very simple, super efficient. You can make an Olympic athlete based off this program easily for lots of sports. Within the workouts, handle the amount of workload or work capacity you're putting within it, whether they're in season or out of season. This works really well. If you're one of these guys who've been training a long time, you like to work out almost every day. Or another part is if you're doing, let's say, deadlift here, right? And then squat here, that's fine. But there's a little bit less quad work twice a week. Right? So remember that rule that I like to get twice a week quad work. So in this case, if you're working mainly deadlift on lower here and mainly squat here, there's enough with regards to the hip hinging action and the hips, because the squat obviously works the hips really well. Deadlift definitely does. But this, not so much the quads. So of course you could fill it in with the accessories. Okay. A little bit extra quad work there. Or in the case of someone like a power lifter, a deadlift is quite fatiguing. I actually rather do 2 squat days, right? And then maybe put a day for deadlift at the end of the week, like on a Saturday, maybe 1 or 2 exercises, something to balance it out, like abs and deadlift. So you do squatting, upper, and then deadlift. So if you're wanting to get a really big deadlift, this might be a way to hit every angle of the body and being strong everywhere and having no weakness. But because remember, the deadlift is so fatiguing, it does take sometimes up to 7 days, especially if you're really strong. If you're squatting super heavy on this day, trying to squat super heavy on this day as well, it depends on who you are and what sport you're doing. For a power lifter, sometimes that'll work, sometimes not so much. So the first half, I like to do more strength, right? And then the next half would be more hypertrophy, right? So that would be more muscle growth. The first half would be more nervous system. This allows for the stimulus change and for further adaptation to these movements and to strength gains down the road. Again, if you're a newbie and not that strong, twice a week will work. There's a limit and you will find a plateau eventually. Now, there are athletes that squat, 6 to 9 times a week, like an Olympic lifter, depending on what country's training them, but because their legs are super strong and their strength to weight ratio is through the roof. So they are, in my opinion, the strongest strength to weight ratio in the world. Depending on your athlete, to push to get to greater levels, you do have to expand your work capacity in a week. But you can't do 6 times a week squatting. If you're a newbie, you're going to start getting injured pretty quick. You have to slowly do it within 1, 2, 3 years and beyond. Don't just jump into these crazy hard things. Start with hitting each body part twice a week, and that's a really good base. Again, lower upper, off Wednesday, off weekend, and or sports. If you're doing your own sport in between, works really well, and it probably can take you the furthest. If I had to choose one particular style of training, that would be the one I would choose for the most amount of people.